When Calls the Heart, Season 8, Episode 2, February 28th. Okay. Those of you who said that Elizabeth was worried about Lucas's mom, you were right. It wasn't about Nathan or Lucas. So I just wish she'd go ahead and make a decision. I didn't give her the benefit of the doubt because I'm tired of the indecision. Little Jack was looking at a picture of his dad. Elizabeth came over and said, "You, who is that, Jack? Your dad?" He says, "Yeah." And Elizabeth went to say how strong his dad was and how he's going to be strong too. Lucas went to check on his mom to see if she needed anything to eat, but she really seemed like she was busy. She was looking at papers. I'm guessing she's looking at Elizabeth's writings, but Lucas looked disappointed that he wasn't going to spend time with his mom. She looked busy, but she said she was tired. On Lucas's way out the door, he asked his mom when would she like to meet with Elizabeth Thornton. She looked at him and said, "I'm really not up to it right now." Lucas stepped out the door and he had, I think it was a worried look on his face. Before the weather service interrupted my program, Lee was getting a delivery, and Jesse was eating his hot breakfast that Rosemary cooked for him. When the program came back on, Elizabeth was knocking on Miss Bouchard's door. When Helen told her to enter and they got the pleasantries out of the way, Elizabeth began to explain to her why her book was late, and Helen corrected her and said manuscript because Elizabeth was an undisciplined writer. Elizabeth told her that she decided not to let the book interfere with her life. She takes the book writing seriously, but she came to Hope Valley to be a teacher. Helen told her, "Well, should you decide to put a teensy bit of dedication to writing, then perhaps we can talk. Maybe tomorrow?" And she dismissed her. "Good day, Elizabeth." Henry wants to get back in the oil business with Lucas. His offer is if he doubles his crude output within a year, then he becomes majority owner. And Lucas let him run the business like he wants to. And if he doesn't double his output, he'll just walk away from the business. Mike and Jesse had some kind of bet about Fiona cutting Mike's hair. Mike was sitting in the chair and he and Fiona were chit-chatting, and he was asking her what made her want to open a barber shop and not a beauty shop. And she was telling him that cutting hair, men's hair, is easy. It's the shave that's difficult. And within that last conversation, I don't know how it happened. Maybe he turned his head, but she clipped his ear. He jumped right up and he was trying to talk himself out of passing out. Fiona was chasing after him. He went straight to Carson and Faith. He asked Carson, "Is my ear still there?" Carson said, "Yeah, it's still there." Lucas and his mom was walking through the town. They were looking over at Elizabeth, Rosemary, and two of the school kids. Helen asked Lucas, "Is Elizabeth the reason he settled down in Hope Valley?" He said yes. Helen asked Lucas, "Is Elizabeth the reason he settled down in Hope Valley?" Because he doesn't usually settle down in one place. He said yes. Nathan came riding down the road, and she said, "That's the gentleman that was walking with Elizabeth when I came in town." Lucas said, "Yes, that's Constable Grant." She said, "I assume you and the constable are vying for Elizabeth's hand." He put her hand in his arm and they walked on. Elizabeth asked Nathan where he was going, and Nathan said he was going. It sounded like he was saying he was going to look at a house, some land. He said he'd like to see the property as soon as he can because the man has another potential buyer. He says, I think it's time that I settle down. Nathan began to walk up the steps, and Elizabeth turned to ask him, once he comes back from his trip, can they get together? He said, yeah, all right. And then he went on in the building. Just as Elizabeth was turning back around, Robert came whizzing by on an uncontrolled horse. Elizabeth jumped on her horse and went chasing after him. She caught up with him and pulled the reins to make the horse stop. And Robert was trying to explain what happened. Elizabeth said, we'll talk about this when we get back to town. She sounded a little upset. Rosemary was helping Lee down the stairs and onto the couch. They didn't really say why he was in pain, but I assume he was in pain because he was helping the mover with his shipment, and he's not used to doing that. Once she got Lee settled, she went next door to Elizabeth. The babysitter is late, so she's going to stay with little Jack until the babysitter gets there. But while she was talking to Elizabeth, she was looking longingly at little Jack, and she was saying sometimes at night when her and Lee are sitting there, they hear little Jack laughing, and she was looking longingly at him, and they really want a child. And the look on her face led me to know that she is pining for a child. I hope they get one. I hope they have a child naturally, but if not, adopting would be okay too. The guy that helped Lee with his shipment met Bill Avery in front of Bill was riding down the street and the guy stopped him, and he said, because earlier this guy, he ran out of gas, and Jesse helped him get gas yesterday. Today, Bill said, what's the matter? Out of gas? He said, no, that was yesterday. The delivery guy's name is Joseph Canfield, and he was asking Bill Avery about the abandoned gas station. Bill said it has been abandoned for a while because there's not many cars in Hope Valley. Joseph said that's bound to change. Joseph said, well, Bill, I'm looking to settle down. From what I see, I'd like it to be here. Bill said he knew a place for sale and he could take him to it. Come to find out, Joseph has a wife and 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And the house that Bill is showing him to belongs to Henry. They made a deal, and Henry and Bill shook his hand and said, welcome to Hope Valley. Helen and Elizabeth were walking down the street, stretching their legs and getting away from the manuscript, when Helen dropped a bomb on Elizabeth. She told her that she came to Hope Valley because her husband left her. Now, if she had told me something like that, by me not really knowing her, it would have seemed awkward, but she had to get it off her chest. So I'm guessing Helen is going to move to Hope Valley too. Helen and Elizabeth sat down on the bench, and Helen said the last known place she knew her husband to be was in London. Lucas was walking across the street, and Helen said, don't tell Lucas because he doesn't know. When Lucas got there, he's asked that the 3 of them go to dinner. Elizabeth said she couldn't make dinner, and she got up and walked away. If I remember right, she has a date with Nathan. I'm not sure if he's coming back today. I'm not sure about that. But she said when he comes back into town, then she wanted to, meet with him. or hang out with him. Florence was at a restaurant table with Molly. She was gossiping about an incident that happened between Henry and Ned. Um, Henry had a letter to come back, and it was open. And Henry asked Ned, did he open it? And Ned said, of course not. And he seemed hurt that Henry would even ask him that. And so that's what Florence was telling Molly. And Molly heard Bill laughing. Bill was at the table with Lucas's mother, Helen. And Molly got up and went over there and was talking to Bill, and then she acted like she just happened to see Helen over there, and she shook her hand. She said, or she reached her hand out and said, hi, I'm Molly. And Helen didn't even reach for her hand. She just looked at her and said, I'm Lucas's mom. She said, oh, well, may I say that you have a lovely son? Helen said, I'm quite fond of him. Molly said, don't let me interrupt. And she hightailed it out of the whole restaurant. She didn't even go back to the table with Florence. She just left. Helen told Bill, you seem to have a fan. Bill said, I wasn't aware. Mike came back to Fiona's shop to get his hair finished. Clara brought Jesse and Faith brought Carson. They both said they just needed a trim, and they seemed kind of nervous. Bill chased Florence out of the restaurant. He began to tell her that he's been a bachelor for a long time. Florence stopped him and said, are you under the impression that I'm interested in you as a suitor? I came by your table curious about the woman with whom you were dining. Molly said, true, I have mentioned to Florence that it would be nice getting to know you. Bill said, oh, you are interested in me. And she said, don't flatter yourself, and walked away. Bill looked after her, dumbfounded. Henry was back at Ned's fussing about the open letter. When he stormed out, he got dizzy and sat down on the step. Just so happened Carson was in there, and he didn't know what was going on, but he saw them fussing together. And he talked Henry into walking over to the office to check him out. Elizabeth was sitting on a tree stump looking down like she was in deep thought. She heard a horse galloping, and it was Nathan coming back into town. She said, oh my goodness. When Nathan got closer, Elizabeth got off the stump and she waved at him and said, how was your trip? He was excited about he said the land was beautiful, and he was excited talking about it to her. And he said that he will enjoy he and Allie living there. He would enjoy living there. And then he added in Allie and I. Elizabeth had to tell Nathan something that's been on her mind for a while, that Nathan means a lot to her. He and Allie both. But she sensed that Nathan is looking for something more than friendship. Nathan said he wasn't trying to hide it. She said, when you were almost shot, you want more than I can give you. It would just hurt too much if I lost you the way I lost Jack. Nathan said that he wouldn't let that happen. She said, you can't say that to me. Nathan even said he would quit the Mounties. She wouldn't let him do that. She turned to leave, and Nathan was calling her name, and she said, I can't stay. It'll only make it harder for me to leave. And he said, well, then don't go. I know you feel the same way that I do. I love you. She looked at him with those big old eyes and said, I can't, and got on the horse and rode away. She was riding her horse through what looked like a meadow of some kind, and she slowed down, and she seemed really upset. So I'm thinking, this is just me. This has nothing to do with what I saw on the show. I'm thinking that she loves Nathan too. And although she didn't say it, I believe she loves Nathan too. But like she did say that she didn't want to lose him like she lost Jack. So she may go ahead and choose Lucas just for that fact, that she don't think she'll lose Lucas But you don't know. You don't know when your end's gonna come. Just because Nathan is a Mountie doesn't mean he's gonna die at his job. And just because Lucas is not a Mountie doesn't mean he wouldn't die in a gunfight or something. Well, that's the end of tonight's show, When Calls the Heart, Season 8, Episode 2. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe.